One of the biggest problems in South Africa is our Marxist communist government. The ANC are oftentimes described as stupid buffoons that don't know what they're doing. I would like to contest this idea and say that it's very, very dangerous to underestimate your opponents. And yes, the ANC are opponents of this country. You see, the ANC are intelligent in all the ways that it matters. They're politically incredibly intelligent. You see, the ANC managed to study the communist movements throughout the world. And in so doing, they found one fundamental flaw with each of these communist movements. They did too much too fast, which spooked investors, created panic, and this then followed with sanctions and the world condemning the country at hand. So instead of doing that, the ANC decided on a new approach. Instead of going fast and basically doing what the EFF wants, which is to just ham fist their policies through, the ANC said, no, we'll do it slowly. Slowly over time, we'll take control of every single sector of the economy. This goes for corporations, where the ANC's own investment arm or the government's investment arm now owns a big stake in almost every company in the country, which is why you will never see corporate CEOs and stuff talk out or speak out against the government. Because if they did, the government would just drop those shares and those companies would go bankrupt overnight. The government knows this. So this gives the government full control of the corporate sector. This is true for businesses, where businesses are now going to be forced to comply with BEE rules as set out by the minister. So slowly but surely, the government is taking control of every single sector. Now, President Trump's tariffs and threatening tariffs or sanctions will definitely be a bit of a stick in the spokes here, but it's not going to slow them down. They can't slow down. They're on this path to fully Marxist utopia, I guess you could say. One of the places where this is now also starting to really become evident, and yes, the Education Department of South Africa has already been thoroughly captured, but where it becomes mega important is in this story. For those of you that already know everything you need to know about this story and you just want the updates as of the 8th of August, I'm just quickly going to say now, there's a crowdfunding campaign. 141,000 Rand has already been raised, and Mrs. Erasmus has now been suspended a second time without leave, and she and her husband isn't allowed anywhere near the school grounds. This is just what will follow here if you want to keep watching, because really it does help out if you continue watching. But what will follow here is just one of the most egregious misuses of power, as well as a witch hunt perpetrated by the media. In fact, it got so bad the Daily Maverick was ordered to retract and apologize for their egregious reporting on this matter. It's absolutely astounding, the level of racism and complicity that exists within this country. Then, very quickly, before we get into it, please consider hitting that subscribe button, literally just one button. And if by the end of this video you don't like what I do, you can just hit the button again. It doesn't cost you anything. Anyways, enjoy. Now, this is a story that's been developing over the course of the last 2 years, almost since 2023. And now it's sort of reaching its peak, I guess you could say. Yesterday, some new articles from News24 revealed that the MEC of Education in Gauteng is going even harder. They're not slowing down. The government is doing nothing to intervene, despite the fact that every single independent authority that has reviewed the case brought by the MEC of Education has found that there's just no evidence to actually go on anything, and that most of the investigation is completely erroneous. Right? It should not be brought in the first place, but here we are, right? So fundamentally, most of you should know about this story already, but I'll just give a quick overview. It starts with 12 girls who have a WhatsApp group that is described as whites only, right? In the WhatsApp group, it is alleged in 2023, and the media runs with this, that these girls were saying the most racist things, absolutely unacceptable. These girls should be suspended immediately, and they are. Right, the school immediately suspends these girls and then starts to look into the WhatsApp group and starts their investigation. The school then finds, right, after this investigation, well, actually, should just mention, at the height of this, right, the EFF is leading chants and groups of schoolgirls outside the gates of the school singing "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer." Every media corporation in the country is writing articles about how racist white people are. You can imagine the journalists in this country, their mouths are watering because they finally get to call out all the racism the white people are doing. In fact, it gets so bad, right, that every single one of these media outlets are basically just inventing stories around these girls. The school eventually concludes their investigation and reinstates the 12 girls, finding that there's no racism anywhere, at least that they can find. This angers the school, the media. It angers the EFF, the ANC, the MEC of Education. They're all now up in arms, and they launch new investigations. Basically, their own independent investigation by the lawyer that they paid 500,000 Rand for one task. But this lawyer has been on the payroll for the MEC of Education since 2014. I'm not going to even try to pronounce these people's names. It's impossible for me. My Afrikaans tongue just doesn't do these names very well, so I apologize for that, and I'm not going to butcher it. So we'll just say the lawyer and the MEC. But okay, so this lawyer then finds that absolutely that Mrs. Erasmus, the principal of the school, and the school board was completely out of line. There was absolute racism, and they're trying to cover it up. In fact, in his report, when he gives his media briefing, he makes these grandiose statements of the incredible racism that he uncovered at the school, where white teachers won't greet their black counterparts. White students were continuously calling black students names. Black students were being discriminated against on a massive scale. Just the school is guilty of every single racist idea you can ever imagine. In fact, he calls it a culture of racism at the school. The issue is the school then asks for a copy of the report. They want to see what was actually found, except they refuse to give a copy of the report. The media goes on BizNews, the reporter goes on to write, what acts of racism had these individuals supposedly committed? It is impossible to say, because Mr. Lawyer refused to release his report, and the remarks which he delivered at the press conference were vague and cryptic. And then after all of this happens, the Mr. Lawyer abandons his entire investigation into the culture of racism at the school, and instead he starts investigating allegations of misgovernance and maladministration. The school's governing body then requests a copy of this report because obviously if there are indeed these massive racism stuff happening at the school, the body wants to see that so that they can fix it, so that they can get rid of all of these racist people at the school. However, inexplicably, they were instructed to file a request under the Promotion of Access of Information Act, so they won't release the report. They complied. They did file such a motion, and their application was rejected. These are different departments, but this bill, the Access of Information Act, no, you can't get the report. This leaves the school body with what else can they do, right? They've asked for the report. The report will not be made available to them. So we have a serious problem here. Then we have President Thabo Mbeki actually getting involved, and he goes on a full investigation of his own, reading through the WhatsApp group as well as apparently seeing the report itself. And here's what he had to say. We ourselves have also closely studied the comments made by the chat group independently to determine whether these constituted manifestations of racism and hate speech. Our own firm conclusion is that there is no such manifestation in the said comments. We therefore fully agree with the ruling of the SGB DC on the matter of the 12 learners in the chat group. In other words, all of this, the EFF, the ANC, their outrage, their kill the Boer, kill the farmer stuff, it's found to be completely erroneous. There is no problem here. The girls weren't being racist. In fact, what the chat group actually consisted of were just girls writing about the racism against them from fellow students and fellow classmates and how they're sick and tired of every single conversation breaking into you racist white people effectively. So they weren't making the racist statements themselves. They were complaining about racism. But remember, they now shifted their investigation to misgovernance and maladministration. In this, they actually find the principal, Mrs. Erasmus, guilty again, right? In the meantime, in this new investigation, the Gauteng Department of Education's own handpicked lawyers have now implicitly acknowledged that the so-called racist WhatsApp group contained no racist remarks. So this whole thing that kicked off everything doesn't even actually exist, and that Mrs. Erasmus responded entirely appropriately. Moreover, despite searching for 95 days, Mr. Lawyer failed to identify a single other instance of racism at this school, right? So finally, not finding any racism, they shift to something new. The second allegation concerned the appointment of the school's finance manager. It was claimed that the position was not properly advertised and that accordingly, the appointment contravened the school's selection and recruitment policy. This allegation is strongly disputed. In any case, the appointment was made by the school governing body, not by Mrs. Erasmus. At most, Mr. Lawyer found that Mrs. Erasmus erred in not giving the school governing body proper advice at the time when the appointment was made. So they're going after this principal, but the principal had nothing to do with the appointment of the finance manager of the school. It is worth noting that no claim has been made that the finance manager is incompetent. On the contrary, Pretoria Girls' financial position remains strong. No small achievement given the growing challenge of non-payment of school fees. Incidentally, I understand that one of the departmental officials who made inflammatory remarks about the 12 white girls in July 2024 is himself a parent at the school and is reportedly over 100,000 Rand in arrears on his account. This may actually be part of what is, spurring on all of this stuff. And then you have the third allegation, and this is just absolutely insane, where effectively they're accusing Mrs. Erasmus of circumventing proper procedure because her husband is assisting with garden maintenance free of charge, by the way. He's not charging the school anything. He's just helping out, making sort of allegations of him using school property because he used a bakkie to, I guess, take away some of the refuse and stuff from the school. And they say he's not allowed to do that. This is department property, except it's not department property. It belongs to the school board, and the school board was informed that he was going to use the bakkie, and they were perfectly fine with it. Now, this is according to Mr. Lawyer. He has the following to say: it makes no difference whether Mr. Erasmus was performing school-related work when he used the vehicle, or whether it was a private trip or not, or whether proper permissions was granted or not. It is truly immaterial in my view. In other words, I don't care about the facts. I don't care about the law being broken or not being broken. I care about this principle. I will find her guilty on everything. Something will stick, and we will get her. Now, of course, the Gauteng Department of Education had their own investigation. They had their own trial, so to speak, and they found her guilty on 2 counts of misconduct. This means that they can now suspend her, but the principal is not done fighting. She is going to take this, she has to now apply for a review of the case. The problem is that Mr. Premier, or the MEC for Education, is the guy that has to look at the appeal, so that's probably going to get scrapped. And only then can she actually take it to the court system, where hopefully this will finally be overturned. But this is literally a quote from them. If we can't get her for racism, we'll get her for something else. That's the mainstay here. That is all they actually care about. They will get her for something. And this is how the ANC operates. They'll start with this school because it's a prominent school, it's a well-run school, but it is also a school that doesn't go along with what the government wants. It's a school that puts the education of its pupils first. The government cannot have that. So they'll start with this school, see how far they can take it. If they win this case, they'll go to other schools because now they have precedent. They can actually say, look, it is our job to get rid of all of these white principals, all of these white schools, and instead make them all into, the worst schools in the country. Because ultimately, and I genuinely believe this, but this is actually just me being a bit of a conspiracy theorist, that I genuinely believe that the ANC has identified their biggest weakness: education. People who are educated do not vote for the ANC. We know this. All of the polls show this. The second someone finishes school, they no longer vote ANC. The ANC understands that this cannot stand. What they need are a bunch of people who are educated but not educated. And this is why they're going after functioning schools. They need all schools in the country to fail in the education system, to have terrible pass rates. This school, by the way, has something like a 99% pass rate. So they're really good at what they do. And that's amazing, right? We need more schools like this, not less. But because the school is functioning so well, this really makes the department very, very uncomfortable. And they're going to continue to do it. It's a sad day in South Africa, specifically for our country, for our democracy. And ultimately, we need to fight back. I wanted to bring the story to you. I know it's a little bit late, but I think people need to know. As always, let me know in the comment section down below what you think of this story. Where do you land on this? I think it exposes so much of the evils of this government, but also the evils of the media. And I really think that more people should see this. As always, I'd love to read your thoughts. If you like what I do, if you think that more people should have access and see this content, please consider hitting the like button. It helps. Hitting that subscribe button, it helps. And leaving a comment because it really helps. Then, if you want to support this channel a little bit more, and if you're already a patron, thank you so much. Links are in the description down below, or just hit the join button right below this video. It's literally one click, and you help me out. As always, be good to each other, be kind to each other, and I'll see all of you in the next one. A peace.